Hello, and welcome to another scrapbooking process video. I'm Tracy, also known as MercyTiara, and I make scrapbooking process videos and more here on my channel. Today, I am working on a page that I'm creating using the MercyTiara Kits Adventure Weights Kit. And I'm starting off with a piece of ephemera here. Our favorite brewery where we go for our movie nights and other fun things is closing, unfortunately. And so I had to document what might be one of our last time. Well, certainly definitely is one of our last times. It could have been the last time. We're hoping to get by one more time. I bought a couple of beer glasses and they put them in a cardboard box that holds beer, and it has one of their logos stamped on it. So I was very happy that they gave that to me because I knew I would be scrapbooking this. This is actually the day after we had gone out to the brewery that I'm scrapbooking this. So I am looking through my die collections and I'm looking for a circle that will cut out that logo. And I also want a pinked circle that will layer behind that original circle. So I have two sets of the waffle flower nested circle dies. If you have both sets, you'll have pretty much any size of circle that you could possibly want. So I kind of took a little bit of time to sort out the exact sizes of dies that I wanted to use, but I came up with this combination. I just wanted to make sure that I was making this circle as small as possible because it's going to be a pretty big element on the page as it is. And I also wanted to make sure that the pinked die cut piece will fit and show nicely behind it. So I'm running this through, and these little thin metal dies will cut through this box board. It's about the same thickness as a cereal box. Those thin metal dies will cut through box board or chipboard as long as it's thin. So that, like I said, the cereal box weight is pretty safe. Most of my thin metal dies will cut through cereal box weight chipboard pretty easily. Now I am just double checking that that will fit, layering with the pinked die, which I haven't cut yet, but I am just putting it aside because now I'm going to look through what embellishments I might want to use on this page. Now, the Adventure Weights kit does have a light travel theme. It's a light optional travel theme. For most of the travel items, you can flip the papers over to the other side, and it's more neutral. And I also have the travel add-on, which is a heavily travel themed collection of supplies to add to the Adventure Weights kit to make it very travel themed. I also have the cut files here, which I have pre-cut. Cut one of them out of white, that's the background file. And then I also have some of the other icon files cut with the blue, although I won't be using those on this page. Now, here is something that I was thinking about doing, which is using this background cut file and layering it with this beautiful patterned paper from the main kit. And I'm kind of not too sure exactly what direction I want to go here. And this is the way that a lot of my layouts end up playing out for me, which is that when I sit down to scrapbook, I don't usually have an idea of exactly what I want to do. So in this case, I'm playing around with the idea of using that background cut file and perhaps putting some little chunks of pattern paper poking through, like showing through some of those holes in the background die cut. But I am ultimately not going to do that. I'm just having a look at those papers and trying to decide what I want to do with it. And then I remembered that I have this stamp set, which is a recent acquisition for me. This is from the Beer Blueprint set of stamps from Stamper Anonymous, which is a Tim Holtz. It's a Tim Holtz collection. And you will see me pull that over again. I'm having a look at, I thought about pulling off my off-track logo sticker off of our movie club notes book, but there's still a lot of pages left and I kind of want to leave it there for sentimental reasons. So I'm not going to do that. I will just use the beer case circle thing that I cut out instead. And now here I have this background file cut file, that is, cut on a piece of paper. And as you can see, when I printed it up, it's actually, I think it was centered in my Silhouette software, but when I put the paper on the mat, I didn't center the paper. So it ended up cutting a little bit off center there. I'm just going to go with that. I'm not going to try to, I'm certainly not going to recut it. I think that that would be a bit of a waste of a beautiful piece of white paper. And so I was saying that I could either cut it down on 2 or 3 sides to make it all even and have the layout just kind of float around a little bit in the page protector, or I could mat the whole thing on a piece of white cardstock, cut and gut out the center so that I'm not wasting too much of it. But it ends up not really mattering because I'm not going to use that one on this page. I'll use it on a future page, but not quite on this one. So I am trying to decide between the mug of beer and the bottle of beer, and I can't decide quite yet. So I've decided to stamp both of these. And I was going to use a piece of foam. I sometimes use foam when I'm stamping on my desk just to make sure I get a nice good image, but this is a rubber stamp. They give good images anyways, so I'm just going to go ahead and freehand it. It's stamped beautifully. I do have a pressing tool there that helps you press on a stamp positioner, and I thought it might help, but I don't even think I needed it. You'll see when I stamp the bottle that I just use my bare hands and it comes out perfectly as well. These rubber stamps work really, really well. So there we go. I've got a beautiful impression of both of those images. And now I'll just clean up that stamp with my stamp chamois. I have the one from Stampin' Up. And there. Now I want to use one or both of these as embellishments on my project. I'm just not sure which. So the combination of that logo that's die cut and will be layered on a pink die cut, and then those 2 beer, one or both of those beer embellishments will be the main embellishments on this page. I do want to mat my photos, and my photos this time are printed at, the squares printed at 4x4, which pretty much fills up the width of a 4x6 photo. And then my smaller photo, which was taken in really low lighting. It was taken outside in the dark after we finished our movie club meeting. And because it was using the facing camera and it was in dark lighting, it's much lower quality. It's fairly grainy. So I printed that small. It's printed at 2 by 3 inches. Going to mat both of those with pieces of cardstock. This is that really light, this really dark blue that came in the cardstock add-on for the Adventure Awaits kit. Now here's the point at which I'm deciding to ditch the die cut background piece. I'll use that on another page, but I'm just feeling like I don't want to do that right now. So, I don't think that I'm going to love the look with this particular layout. I would really love to layer a whole lot of embellishments around these photos. And I thought that having that die cut there as well as all of the layering that I'm planning to do would just be a little bit too much. So I'm going to focus on the layering, and whoa, isn't that stunning? This piece of paper is the surprise of the Adventure Awaits kit. I love this diagonal piece of paper. I haven't been as excited about a piece of pattern paper in a long time, but I just love the energy, and look at how beautifully it works with this particular background paper. I mean, really, this would work as a matting paper for any of the papers in this kit that have these colors in it. I'm going to use it on this particular layout, but I'm gutting it because I love that pattern so much. I definitely want to use more of these colorful, energetic stripes. I'm going to trim this down. I forgot to trim it down. At first I thought I was ready to adhere it, and then I remembered, wait a second, I have to cut it down on 2 adjacent sides. I am cutting it to be, I think, a little bit more than 1/2 inch off on each side, which will give me a little bit more than 1/4 inch all the way around. I did cut it the wrong size, like it wasn't even on the 2 adjacent edges. I don't know what I did there. I think maybe I wasn't paying attention. I do live stream a real-time process video with my patrons a lot of the times that I'm scrapbooking these days. And so I was chatting and might have lost track of my measurements there for a second. But good old rulers will help you get back on track if that happens to you as well. I'm fairly distractible, so it happens a lot to me. Does it happen to you? Can you relate? Leave me a comment. I'd like to hear from you. Oh boy, that was not even. And I tried unsticking it and thought, no, I'll leave it. And then I decided, no, I'm not going to leave it. I'm actually going to take the time, pull this off. And as I pull it off, it's resticking as I go, but I managed to get it off. And now I'm just going to, I think I had to stand up in order to actually put this down properly so that it wasn't quite so uneven. It's okay if it's a little bit uneven, but it was fairly uneven there, so I wanted to fix it. I'm going to run my fingernails along the edges of it just to make it look a little bit textured along the outside edges and give it a little bit of interest there. We were chatting about music and movies and how once you have either a lyric or a quote in your head, then anytime you hear something similar to it, you kind of hear the whole quote in your head, or maybe you can't resist quoting a movie or a song whenever you hear something similar to it. That was one of the things we were talking about that day. So some of the comments might be related to movies and music, and that would be why. I am going to do some outlining. Now, oftentimes I wait till the end to outline, but here I'm just going ahead and outlining ahead of time. Sometimes I do something like this if I don't have an idea of what to do first. I'll just say, well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to want this outline, so we'll start there. And maybe while I'm outlining, I'll have some ideas about what to do. So this is how the photos are going to layer with one another. I didn't want to cover up too much of the photo behind us because that's part of the logo of the it's not part of their logo, but they use the Volkswagen buses as their logo. So they had lots of different places around the shop where different versions of Volkswagen buses are. And I'm just having a look at this and trying to decide where my paper layers are going to go. I grabbed all of the die cuts. There are count them, 4 sets of die cuts in this kit. It's a lot of die cuts. And so I thought that this might be a great opportunity for me to use lots and lots of them. And if that's the case, I'm going to want to have some fairly simple layering of papers. And so I'm going to start with a ledge because that's a great starting point. A ledge will anchor your photos, and what I mean by a ledge is a horizontal element, a strong horizontal element that runs across the edge of the center of your page. And in this case, it's a nice strong contrast with the background paper. It complements the background paper quite nicely. So I'm going with that yellow patterned paper. And I am thinking as I create these layers, I just want to think about whether I might want to leave room for certain embellishments or not. And I did have one embellishment on that set of foam thickers that I think it said, remember this, and I might want to leave room for that. Now here's a paper that is very complementary to that yellow. It's a nice light blue with a cursive font on it. And I'm going to layer it right behind these photos. I've already torn it, and I kind of wish I tore it a little bit wider because, as you can see, there's not a whole lot of it showing on either side, on the left and on the right. I wish I had a slightly bigger chunk, but I wasn't really thinking about that when I tore it. And I don't have a second piece because I did not get the pattern paper add-on. They were in short supply this month, so I decided to forego again. And so I'm just thinking about how I might want to layer these things. It's possible that I'm overthinking it here. Maybe I don't need to spend quite so much time figuring it out. But I guess one of the reasons that I'm thinking a little bit harder is that I do want to layer these 2 photos in such a way that I'm going to see more of that light blue pattern paper behind on the left and the right. But I don't want to overlap them such that I'm encroaching too much on Adam in that bottom photo. Adam is the fellow on the left-hand side there. I don't want to crowd him, and I also don't want to cut off too much of that photo behind us on the wall. I decide quite early, actually, I think before I even started scrapbooking, I knew that I wanted this to be called the end of an era. And so I'm going to spell this out. And these letter stickers that come with the main kit are just a smidgen too big for the width of strip that I cut here. At this point, I'm wishing I had cut the strip a little bit bigger, but again, I wasn't really thinking ahead. And this is what happens when you wing it when you're scrapbooking, is sometimes you just go with what you've got, even if it's not ideal. Or maybe if it was really bothering me, I could have cut another strip of that paper. But I've decided to go with it. And I think that using a combination of the big black letters that come in the main kit and those little tiny circle letter, those are puffy letter stickers that come in the embellishment add-on, I really like this idea. I think that these work really well together. They're not going to stay like that. I'm going to put of next to and next to era, like that. And my thought here is that I will find little tiny arrows to put in the little negative space that's under of and above an. And those arrows are going to point towards the photos. And you'll have to wait till the very, 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 very end to see how that turns out, because you're not going to see it until the very end. We have a border punch that I'm trying to use this month. I pulled out a couple of things that I want to just try to use, just tools from my stash that I noticed I hadn't been using lately. So this apron lace punch, oh boy, this punch is sticky. So you're going to see what I do to fix it. It's every time I punch it, it kind of gets stuck in the closed position, and then I have to tap it lightly on the table to get it to pop open again. And even as I try to open and close it without any paper in it, it's making this really terrible squeaking sound, which tells me that it needs to be lubricated a little bit. Now, you can use, one of my patrons told me, Rita, told me that you can get a dry lubricant that you can put in your punches. I don't know much about that, but I believe her, and I'm sure it's true. So if you know about that or have some, check it out and try it on your punches. But what I did was I punched with a couple of layers of wax paper, and it immediately solved my problem, and my punch started working much, much better. So that's a little tip for you. Then we have just a little bit of a scooch. So I had to move up my photos a little tiny bit. I just wanted a bit more of that yellow paper showing below the photos. And part of me was thinking I wanted to use a sticker or something in this space below the smaller photo. I'm having a look at all the different embellishments and thinking about what I might want to put where at this point. And now somebody reminded me, hey, you cut that border and you forgot to use it. In true Tracy fashion, I forgot what I was doing in the middle of it. So I cut it to be actually a little bit longer, and now I'm just going to cut it off and layer it right underneath of my yellow strip of paper. And I like how that looks. It just adds a little bit of additional anchoring to my ledge. And because it's a dark, heavy color, it weights the bottom part of this layout quite nicely and provides some nice, some nice anchoring and contrast as well. And the folks who were following along were getting a chuckle at my forgetfulness, which is, yeah, it makes me chuckle too. It's not so bad when I forget something unimportant like putting on a border on my layout. I'm having a look at the die cut pieces here, and I think I'm just going to dump them all into a little tray. So I have these little leatherette valet pieces, cases or trays, I guess you call them. And I love these because you can store them flat or you can snap them together and they become a little dish. I'm putting two sets of die cuts together. Those are the two from Echo Park. And then I will end up grabbing another. Oops, I'm mixing two different brands together there, which I'm not actually meaning to do. So I'll grab another one. I have several of these. And I will put all of the pink paisley die cuts in one and put all of the Echo Park die cuts in the other. And you can mix them up. It's a little, I find it like my brain knows what kinds of looks are in which, so I like to keep them separate. When I'm done with this kit and I put all of these supplies into my stash, I might mix them all together in one little baggie. I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. I'm going through these die cuts and you'll get to see how many beautiful pieces are in this collection. They're so pretty. And I'm basically taking out anything that I think might work and putting away anything that I think won't work. There are a few pieces that are really catching my eye and I'm putting those separate. And then the ones that are just in a pile of, yeah, maybe those are going in one big pile. And after a considerable amount of time of looking through die cut pieces, I came to this pile and put the rest in the valet tray that is now out of frame. I cut some of that out because it was quite a long time. Even at 4 times the speed, it was quite lengthy. Now I am determined to get this navy blue frame on this page right from the beginning. It's speaking to me and I like how dark it is. I feel like it will do a good job of balancing some of the other things. That's that frame up there that I just touched. It's not going to end up on the page, but you can watch it do its little adventure around my desk. Oops, sorry about the blurriness. I don't know what that was, but I have finally decided to cut my pink circle, cutting it out of the same cardstock that I used for matting the photos, so that will pick up on that nice dark accent. This is like my alternative to black for this page, although there is also black on this page. So that pinked die looks amazing. Love, love, love this set of dies. And it will layer really nicely. It's just a smidgen bigger than the circle itself. So you just see these adorable little pinks, little zigzaggy triangles around the edges of it. And next I am thinking about how I'm going to color in these beer, well, at least the beer mug. I'm pretty sure it's the beer mug that I'm going to use, but I have that bottle there as a backup. I am grabbing my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers and a reference photo because I have a very poor visual memory and I couldn't remember what shades beer is. They all look brown to me. And so I didn't want to make it too brown and I just pulled up some reference images there. I can't remember which exact color I was using, and it kind of doesn't matter. I think that whatever you're using, the idea here is creating a DIY piece of ephemera here. I'm starting with the places where the hash marks are, like those shading marks on the artwork. And that way, that part will get a couple of layers of this marker. The thing about these real brush markers is that the more layers you put on, the darker the color gets. So I can kind of mimic the shading. Obviously, you get the shading from the marks on the artwork, but I can enhance that by adding extra layers of marker there too. I had a really hard time picking a color for the foam. And I just keep swatching it on the paper because it seems like some of my swatches don't always, even though it's on paper, and I think it's on the same paper that I used for stamping on, which is Bristol Smooth cardstock, it still kind of never looks the same way. So I'm just checking them. And I ended up going with this very, very, very soft, I think it's called Almond. And because it's so soft, I'm going to go over it a couple of times, just to darken it up a little bit. And that's the beauty of these real color brush markers. Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I can only remember what they're called if I say the whole word at once, the whole phrase at once. I wasn't sure what to do about the glass. I know that sometimes you can use a very soft blue to make it look like glass, like the reflective aspect of glass, but I've decided to use a very pale, pale, pale gray. And again, I'm just going to go over it with a couple of coats to make it look a little bit shaded, just so that it didn't look unfinished. And then I'll put all of these markers back. The idea here is that I wanted to make my own little piece of ephemera that looks like maybe something you might get from a pamphlet from a brewery, or maybe a part of a coaster or something like that. And I accidentally did my swatching way too close to the image. So I just tore it like this. And I thought, even like this, with the two finished edges and then the two torn edges, it kind of looks like it got torn out of maybe something bigger, maybe a placemat or something like that, right? It does introduce a fair amount of white to my page because of all that background space, but I actually quite like that, and I think it's going to work really well with the off-track logo that I've already cut into a circle and then matted on a pinked circle, because that also has a fair amount of white space on it. I'm scooching those photos over a little bit more so that they are actually overlapping the F in of for a little bit. And I'm doing that because I want enough room for the beer mug to still fit over on the right-hand side of my page. At this point, I'm realizing that my border punch is too short. So I'm cutting another little strip of it. And then what I'll do here is I will line it up like that and glue it so that it's slightly overlapping, but that way the pattern remains consistent. And this off-track logo will go right here, and it'll provide quite a bit of quite good balance with all of the white negative space on that beer piece of DIY ephemera. So the real ephemera here and the beer DIY ephemera, they really balance each other out. They're both similar scales on the page, and they both have similar amounts of white space. And I think that that balances quite nicely. I think that if I had a third thing, like I could have put that beer bottle on, I think it would just be too much. So I'm not going to use the rule of thirds here. Rules are made to be broken, and not everything has to be in threes on your page, or multiples of three, or even odd numbers on your page. Here we've got 2, and I think that it works really well. Good to be aware of those kinds of design rules or design principles. Principles is a better word than rules. Good to be aware of them, but you don't have to follow them too closely if it doesn't make good sense for your page. Always listen to your own heart and what you like on your page more than what somebody says should or shouldn't work on a page. I am determined to get that frame on the page. I've cut it in half there so that it will potentially be in 2 different places. I'm going to soften up that beer mug and just make it look a little bit more like it blends in and is tucked in amongst other things by layering part of that wreath with it. And then the other part is going over behind the other photo. So each photo has a little bit of that blue wreath sticking out. I'm adding some little bits of vellum embellishments. This is that little pile of embellishments that I picked out earlier. They're all from the die cut sets from the pink paisley that came in the kit. And I'm working my way through. This picks up on the diagonal line that's on the outside of the page, and I really want to repeat it somewhere on the layout. So I'll put that there just so I don't forget about it. And I basically just want little things to be peeking out every here and there. I like this little die cut piece of vellum with 2 little birds on it, and it repeats the pattern of the bird up in the top, so I like that. I really like that big floral embellishment that's tucked under behind the main photo, but it has a really big, thick white border on it. And so I think I'm going to cut that off. That's a bit too big of a bleed for my liking. And I'm collecting all of my little navy blue elements that might add pops on this page over on the right-hand side there with that frame that I've cut into, and then I have a little banner there too. So anything navy blue, I'll just collect over there and decide where to add towards the end of my layering process. I love this little heart from the die cut pieces, and I can't find a home for it, but I'm still trying. I haven't given up yet. Looking at these pieces and trying to figure out if I could substitute another one that has less of a white border on it, but I ended up deciding that I like this one a lot, so I'm just going to cut down the white edge on it so that it's a little bit less overwhelming. I'm leaving a little bit of white because I do like that look. It does allow it to pop out from some of the other embellishments on the page. If you liked a really tight cut look with no white border, this would be the time to do that instead. However, with an intricate, I mean, look at these little petals on this blue flower. I would not have much fun fussy cutting that, so I've decided, plus I like the look, but I've decided to leave the white edge on it. That's better. It just blends better with everything else without that big white border. Here's another place where I'm leaving some white space is with these tags. Typically when I'm layering tags, if I have white space like this showing, I will find something to put on the tag. I'll find a sticker or pull out my typewriter and do some typing or get some word labels or something like that. But I'm just going to leave them up there, and they balance nicely with the white that is on the beer mug and on the Off Track logo as well. I don't need to fill every single space, but I do want lots of goodies emerging from the layers here. I want it to look like it's just popping with beautiful elements. So I'm going to town with my layering here. I'm still determined to find a home for these frames, but it's a lot easier to find a home for this navy blue banner. So I will start by roughing that up. And still haven't decided where to put it. Here's a little label that has this beautiful purple color that is in the stripy paper, and it's also in some of the florals, especially higher up on the page. So I'm going to use this to hold my tiny little bit of journaling. I'm roughing it up first, and then I think I'm going to tuck it right down here on the right-hand side of Off Track. I'm just going to flip it around so that I can still see the flower on it. And that's where that's going to live. And then it'll cover up nicely the top part of that vellum piece with the birds on it. And I'll layer another blue label, fishtail label thing on top of it from the die cut pieces. And right now we're looking pretty much the way that this page is going to look. I added a sticker here that says Happy Times. And I'm really just auditioning a whole bunch of different things here. Here's that thicker, it's the yellow piece that I kept referring to at the beginning of the whole process here. That's actually not going to make its way onto the page. It would have been a good one because it says, remember this, but I decided to go with this one instead. It says making memories, and we certainly made a lot of memories. And before I put it over by the beer mug there, I just needed to glue down that little blue part of the wreath that sticks out by the beer mug. And now I had already cut apart the vellum piece here with the birds on it. I'm only using the bottom part, and I'm going to hang on to the top part and use it some other time. My journaling here says, news that Off Track is closing hit us really hard. Movie club won't be the same anywhere else. And I'll just rough that up a little bit and use my ATG to just glue it in place. I'm just going to put it just tuck it right behind the logo there so it looks like it's coming out from behind it. And then I will layer this blue piece. It's another piece from the die cut sets. And I'm going to outline it first, but I'm outlining it with white, kind of like I did around the outside edge of the paper. This is a Sakura Jelly Roll 10 pen in white. And then I'm going to put these two stickers. One says love and one says friend, and they don't really need to go together. I think I cut two. I think one of them says hello friend, and I cut it apart so that it just says love and friend. And I'm going to put another little heart sticker between the two of them just to separate them so it doesn't look like I'm trying to say love friend, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense grammatically. I'll layer that just in that weird awkward space where you can see some of the matting of the photo and it just kind of distracts you and draws your eye to a weird spot. And so that does a good job of that. And now it's just a matter of gluing down some of these pieces that I've already decided where they'll go. I just need to add some adhesive to each of them. Now, the vellum pieces are printed, and they're printed in fairly opaque patterns or prints on them, I guess. And so you can go ahead and just use regular adhesive if you're not too picky about it. I can't really see, I'm looking at my page now, and I can't see any adhesive sticking out or anything, or like it's not obvious where the adhesive is. And so if you're really particular about that sort of thing, then go ahead and get some vellum specific adhesive, because that's designed to go under something that's see-through and not be visible. I'm going to layer this. I'm going to use another piece of foam tape here to hold it up. This little piece here that reintroduces the diagonal stripe that I love so much on this page. I'm still trying to get that frame in there, but nope, not going to go there. And I just have this little corner here that I'm trying to decide, am I going to leave those little bits sticking out in what might be a little bit of an awkward way, or am I going to cover them up? I'm just using my ATG on that little vellum bird. I'll float this little sun, or I guess it's a little flower, off to the side of the bird. Another little flower will be floating up by the tags that I glued down. Another little vellum flower poking out, and another one behind the beer. Everything is glued down at this point, which is good. Did a little tip test to make sure that everything is secure on the page. And I'm still thinking about that little awkward corner, and so I've decided to add a little puffy sticker there. It doesn't cover the corner, but it just finishes off that banner nicely. And the banner says Happy Times with a sticker from the 6x12-inch sticker set that came in the kit. This is very close to done now. All I need is a few of the final touches. So I grabbed my MTK confetti mix for Adventure Awaits. These are little sequin bits that are designed to coordinate with the kit. And at first I am putting a white star in each of my little 3 places, and a cornflower blue piece, as well as a chartreuse green piece. And then I decided to switch them out so that I had the textured little turquoise pieces in place of the cornflower blue ones. The nice thing about these mixes is you can pick out the colors that work the best on your particular page. There might be some pages that work well with all of the colors, and some pages that work well with one or some of the colors in the confetti mix. Some of these little confetti pieces are actual sequins with holes in the center. Usually MTK mix doesn't have holes, but I really wanted these textured pieces and the stars, and they have holes. So that means that glue might come through the little holes and get on your little pickup stick if you use one. So just be cautious of that. It makes your pickup stick a lot stickier. Here is the video close-up of this page so far. You'll notice that I still have not added the arrows, but you will be able to see them in just a second. I went into my stash, and do you remember those little arrows from Studio Calico, the very original wood veneer pieces that came out many, many, many years ago? Well, I found 2 of those, the same size and shape, and put them right there. And I really love how that looks. Now back to the process where those arrows haven't been added yet. I'm just going to finish this off with a roller date stamp and call this one done. Before I share the videos, just a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. These folks help make this channel happen, so big thanks to all of them. Patrons get early ad-free access to most of my process videos and real-time unedited versions of my videos, as well as multiple live streams per month and behind-the-scenes videos of my process. We have a really fun Discord group as well that is fun to hang out in. And we even talk about TV shows and all sorts of non-scrappy things as well. Thanks to you also for watching all the way to the end. Let me know how you go about incorporating ephemera into your pages. I'd love to hear any ideas that you have. Share them with us all so that we can all benefit from each other's experience. Here are some of the places where you can find me, and including our Kit Club shop website. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching, and have a really great scrappy week.